Okay, so thanks again. And now I'm going to hand it over to Amanda Filipi and Kelly Ekue, and they're going to be teaching us and presenting on effective evaluations. Thank you, guys.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're really excited that you could attend this Lunch and Learn series. I'm just slowly trying to get my computer screens to, cooperate, but I'm really excited to talk to you about effective evaluations here. And just to give you kind of like set the stage, I guess, during the presentation, be respectful with your audio. Most of you are doing that. So feel free to mute or unmute as you wish. If you're having a really like crunchy lunch, might be best to put it on mute. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So my chat is down at the bottom of my screen. And there's a little word bubble that says chat, and you can kind of put that in there as well. You are welcome to turn your video on if you would like, if you're able or comfortable. I know sometimes internet speeds don't participate with us. And you hopefully are ready to participate and engage. So even if your video is off, we're going to be asking some questions, so feel free to add it in the chat. And by the end of today's program, hopefully you'll discover some new ways to conduct some educational evaluations, okay? So just to start things off with a quick quote, I feel like evaluations are sometimes a heavy topic. We feel like we're evaluating ourselves, and sometimes it might not end well. So the natural response to evaluation is to feel judged, but we have to mature to a place where we respond to it with gratitude and feedback. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind throughout the process today. We're going to do a quick poll. Some of you have done this poll in our pre-program evaluation, but I want to do a quick poll while I pull up another cool video about evaluation. So I'm going to launch this poll really quickly. And go ahead and fill that out as you see fit. Where do you think you are in your program evaluation journey? All right, the responses are rolling in, so I'll give you about 10 more seconds as we wrap up this first poll. We're going to be doing one at the end as well. So like I said, just real briefly here. All right, I gave you all a minute here. So the results of the poll is when we're thinking of program evaluations, my first response is a couple people answered it's someone else's job. And a majority of you answered, they help improve my program, okay? When it comes to the comfort level on conducting programs, we're kind of all across the board. We've got quite a few people with some experience, and then we've got some with no experience or beginners. And then the evaluation type most people are familiar with are a post program evaluation, okay? So that's really great. Results from that helps us evaluate the program that we are doing today. And like I mentioned earlier, I feel like evaluations can sometimes be heavy, right? And so to kind of lighten the mood, I want you to hear about the creativity that this gentleman had when it came to I want to call it, they call it a survey, but I feel like it's more of an evaluation. So go ahead and listen to this real quickly. Excuse me.
Let's get to what Sisney was talking about. Imagine having to fill out a questionnaire for a first date. So you're saying people are doing this?
I love this so much. A woman has revealed that the guy she's dating gave her a pre-date Google survey. to ensure that she would have a good time. At first, when I was like, I saw this, I thought it was crazy, but I don't know that I hate it so much now. Katrina posted a video on her TikTok account revealing the bizarre moment, and it's a questionnaire that her now boyfriend, Graham, asked her out before this date. So this worked. The survey started with a really great opening. I thought it was kind of cute. It said, "You have agreed to go on a date with Graham. Congratulations. He promises a good time with your preferences in mind." And then he said, "I'm going to present to you a bunch of first date options. Please select what you want to do.
I kind of
Dinner
love
and a
it.
movie, visit a museum, a hike, a beach day with ice cream, or skating and hot chocolate." Wow.
I
What?
love this.
It's kind of cute. And then he said next on the agenda was preferred clothing for the date. It ranged from pajamas to an evening gown, and it had a few other selections and whatnot. But once she filled out the form and sent it back to Graham, he then made a formal invitation and sent it to her, detailing everything that they were going to do on the date, almost like an itinerary.
So
I
is
know.
this a
All right. So this gentleman, like I said, came up with a pretty interesting, I feel like, we'll call it a pre-date evaluation, right? He gave a menu, he sent the invite, and then they would have taken it a step further. He then followed up after the date with a post-date evaluation as well. So I want you to kind of think of that. Because like I said, I feel like sometimes evaluations can come across as a little heavy. And so hopefully that made you chuckle just a little bit today. So let's continue on with our slideshow here. So first thing what are evaluations used for, right? Why do we even want to do an evaluation? Well, they help us collect information and data, make sure we're reaching our desired outputs and outcomes. And it also helps us as facilitators or workshop program presenters, excuse me. How am I doing? Like, is there something I could do with my delivery? And that helps us kind of reflect on the program as well. What went well in the program? What could I improve on? It helps us learn about the program. Like, did I achieve the goals that I put out there? Did I reach my target audience, or did I totally miss the boat on that? And then to grow, what can I do? What did I learn about this program? How can I improve to better meet the needs of our visitors or our customers that are coming? And there are several different types of evaluation categories. And those little bubbles or circles, I understand, are kind of hard to read, but one of them says demographics. So making sure we have the right people and the right background at the program or evaluation. The next bubble is knowledge and skills. Are people learning a skill, or are they already coming in with this information? And then making sure we meet our objectives on that as well. So that's just the different types of evaluations that are categories, excuse me, that are out there that for people to learn a little bit more about. So when do we evaluate, right? We could do it several different times. And when we quizzed you before the workshop, we had a lot of different answers. So there's before the program even started. So think about the guy before he went on the date, he gave this menu of what do you want to do on the date? How formal do you want me to dress? All that kind of stuff. So that's important when it comes to your program. Like, you know, is there anything that the audience needs before coming to our program? Maybe knowledge level. So I saw that in ours, we had some people with some basic information on how do we do evaluation. If we had a lot of experts already like signed up for this workshop, you know, that'd be a little different. And we might have to tweak our presentation depending on what our audience level was. We have that post evaluation as well. Did we hit our target audience? You know, did this person have fun at our program? Would they recommend the program to a friend? We also have long-term follow-up programs as well. So are we looking to see if people have retained the information? So this is normally 6 to 12 months following the program is a long-term evaluation. Okay. How do we evaluate? Those are some things to consider when you're thinking about some of those evaluation questions. We want to make sure it's research-based proven methods of evaluation, right? We just don't want to make something up and be like, this sounds like something somebody would do. So you can go and research some other organizations that do evaluations quite a bit. You know, we've got National Park Service, we've got NAAE that also does it, some other types of park and rec organizations, along with Game and Parks, that provides you toolkits with how to evaluate the different questions or different programs that you're doing. We want to make sure we get the most accurate data. And the way that we do that is like, what type of question do you want to ask? What type of information do you want to get? And then come up with a question that would get you the results that you're looking for. So are you going to ask open-ended questions? So people are going to type their thoughts and feelings down, and you have to go through them individually one by one, as opposed to a multiple choice. We can quickly see the results like we did in our poll earlier. A sliding scale is another way, and I guess a no question or some of the other types of questions that you can ask on how we're actually going to evaluate our program. The questions should be well thought out, like what goal are you trying to reach? What information are you trying to collect with your evaluation and apply to the group, okay? And to provide an environment that allows the participants to freely let you know kind of what they think. So giving them time, you know, is it something that you have them fill out way after the program? Is it something that they do on site with you? Is it a follow-up at-home evaluation? Those are some different things to kind of take into consideration on how you're evaluating your program. Are there any questions out there about how to evaluate questions before we move on to the next?
None so far,
slide?
Amanda.
Okay, I wanted to double check, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to move too fast when it comes to this kind of stuff, because yeah, it can be overwhelming at times. So why is it important for us to evaluate, right? We want to make sure that we're making informed decisions about our programs and planning our programs. So we want to make sure it meets our objectives, and we'll explore objectives here in a little bit more detail. We'll also want to make sure we show the impact of our programming. Is there enough information to make a decision about whether a program will continue or whether we need to change it up a little bit? We'll reflect on the strengths and weaknesses of the program. Better able to understand also our participants that are at our program. Are they expert level? Are we moving them along a continuum spectrum, which we'll talk about in a little bit? So there's a lot of great information about the guests that are coming to your programs, but there's also a lot of great information about how we present our programs and how we're getting evaluated. You know, if I'm constantly getting the same question, or folks don't understand what I'm saying at a program, and it reflects in my evaluation, I need to think like, okay, how could I explain this better to make sure that everyone completely understands what I'm saying? It also helps to garner support. Either that's administrative support, or maybe that's granting financial support. If you have that information there, you're able to say like 95% of the participants, you know, wanted to learn more about recycling. Hey, let's partner with somebody else. Let's partner with Keep Nebraska Beautiful or something along those lines. So it also helps provide you the information to get some support for your program. I mentioned a little earlier that we were going to talk a little bit more about goals and what those are, and especially objectives. So your goal is the primary purpose of the program. What do you want participants to walk away with when you're done with their program? So for example, I want my program participants to have a better understanding of Nebraska snakes, the different species of Nebraska snakes that we have here, okay? My objective is specific and measurable, okay? and it can help with both planning and as an evaluation tool. So an objective for my snake program might be, I would like 85% of the participants to be able to properly identify a Western hognose snake when I put the picture up at the end of the presentation. Or I would like 50% of the participants to grab a flyer for my next upcoming snake series program. And how I do that is, I can count the number of flyers that were handed out, or I can count the number of people that answered the question of the hognose snake, right? So those are very specific and they're very measurable on those objectives. So the goal is overarching, like, what do you want your participants to walk away with? And those objectives are very measurable. Is there any questions about those? Sometimes they get a little muddy when we start talking about objectives and the next one that goes with objectives a lot of times is going to be outcomes. So we have outcomes and outputs, goals and objectives, and they're all kind of slightly different. But an outcome is, what do we want to achieve to meet our mission? So is it a behavior change? Is it a change in attitude? Is it going to be something tangible? And usually that goes along with your mission statement. So I want you to think about your own organization or agency that you work with. But here at Nebraska Game and Parks, this is our mission statement. I need to make sure the programs that maybe I'm presenting fit within our mission statement. So what do I want to achieve from our mission? The outcomes force us to ask ourselves why we are offering each program and what the long-term impact is of this program. So for example, my outcome for the snake program that I do is I want people to not always kill a snake if they see it, not to fear them quite as much as what they typically do, okay? And I know that there's a lot of mission statements out there, so just kind of think eternally with your own organization. What's your mission statement and how can your program kind of make sure that meets that mission statement and how that's reflected in your evaluation? So for Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, we have our focus on education strategic plan that we focus a lot of our educational programs on. And here's just some brief information about that. If you're wanting to learn more information about the focus on education strategic plan, we can send that out to you as well, or you can reach out to myself or Kelly or Amber, and we can send you a little bit more information about that. But that's another one of our guiding principles here, is our focus on education strategic plan. So people are coming to our programs, right? They have this awareness of our program, and we're trying to move them along this pathway, this spectrum of involvement in the outdoors, okay? Some people might have heard of it of RDR or R3 is another big term that's being thrown out there as well. So it's a pathway that's helpful to determine, the desired outcomes on where the participants are on the spectrum. So a lot of times with our educational programs, we maybe have an awareness or an interest. Maybe it's a trial phase. And what we want to do is we want to make sure they're able to do these programs or to do these activities without continued support. So for example, I have somebody that has an interest in Dutch oven cooking. They come to the program. My goal is for them, if they really enjoy it, to go and do some Dutch oven cooking on their own. And how we get them there, is through trial. Maybe they come to a program. Maybe they do some Dutch oven cooking with us, Then they need to decide, do I make the investment and purchase a Dutch oven? Can I continue on with support or without support? Or is that something that I just want to continue to try and maybe this wasn't for me? So it also makes sure the customers become involved in an activity. And our hope is that when they complete the activity, they move along the spectrum, and it also comes with some different behavior changes a little bit as well. So that's just a little bit of information of our spectrum of involvement in the outdoors, whether that be, like I said, a Dutch oven cooking program or one of our shooting sports programs. We want to start them kind of moving them down the spectrum in hopes that this is a change in their behavior and they're able to go and do the program, the activity without support, because there is that behavioral change in there, right? Any questions? I'm not seeing anything pop up in the chat, but I know we just talked a lot about different things. So I want to make sure if anybody has any questions to go ahead and either put it in the chat or, like I said, unmute yourself if you would like to as well. All righty. Well, now comes, we talked about outcomes. Here we go. What are our outputs? Okay, what is an output? It's a thing that contributes to us succeeding with our programming and make sure we're achieving our outcomes. So that means we have the right people at the program. Outputs are a measurable item, okay? So if I'm doing, like, for example, a Dutch oven cooking program, and this is introduction to Dutch oven cooking, I would hope that most of the participants would be beginners, right? They're in that interest phase or awareness phase. They want to learn more about it. I'm not saying that the expert Dutch oven cooking people would not be welcome at the program, because there's some different tips and tricks you can do to make sure they're involved with the program. But, you know, this is a basic program. We're trying to build people up and move them down that pathway. So are there the right people at the program? Did we meet the expectations of the participants? Were they hoping to figure out, you know, how to use a Dutch oven cooking, or were they wanting very specific makers and models of Dutch ovens to purchase? Delivery and facilitation is another key thing to kind of keep in mind. So for example, something that I might change or do differently with this program is, do you see how the picnic tables are all the way in the back? And then I have people up front that are sitting on the ground. You know, maybe something I could do differently next time is move a picnic table a little closer, or move all of those picnic tables closer so people are able to sit comfortably, but also see all the cooking going on in the cool fire pit that we have going on. That just also helps to make sure that your participants are comfortable, okay? And another good output would be, like, was registration a pain? Was it promoted correctly, or did the people hear about it? So outputs, like I said, are the measured items. Like, if it's too hot in there, and I get a lot of evaluations that say, like, oh, it's too warm, then I know, okay, well, obviously I'm keeping the room a little too warm for folks, or maybe I should have moved a picnic table closer. Those are things that I can work on when moving forward with those different programs and activities. So, any questions?
None so far. I mean, you're doing a great job, though. This is really good, really helpful.
Well, I want to make sure people are awake, right? And I feel like I've been talking for a little while. So here's what we're going to do. I have a cool Padlet thing on my computer. It's a little thing that if you click on the link, okay, it will take you to this Padlet. And I want to know from the audience, because I noticed that there are some people that have experience doing presentations, if you wouldn't mind going into this Padlet and typing in your very favorite evaluation question that you love to ask people. It can be whatever type of evaluation question you like, if it's a pre or a post. So for example, my favorite evaluation question is, would you recommend this program to a friend? Okay, so if you could go on the Padlet. Now, if you're not able to go on the Padlet, or maybe your computer's just being wonky, go ahead and type it into the chat as well. So you can put your very favorite evaluation question either in the chat, or you can go to that other link and put it in the Padlet. And on the Padlet, when you get to it, there is a little pink, I want to say pencil down at the bottom, and you can put that in there. So add a post and you just type in your question. So like I said, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat. We've got questions rolling in. I can see it live, which is pretty cool. Like, How did you hear about this program? What's one thing you learned about today's program, or a couple of the people's favorite questions that are out there in the evaluation question realm? So feel free to kind of put that out there and see what you got going on over there. And I'll give you probably 30 more seconds. Oh, this one's an intense one. For facilitators, what is the greatest barrier to making this activity or program successful? What will you use this program for yourself? So that's another great question. Thanks for putting that in there, Lori from Western Nebraska. Whoop, whoop. All right. So go ahead, like I said, 15 more seconds. Go ahead and put either your favorite evaluation question in the chat, or you can put it on the Padlet. All right, thanks for adding that in there. We've got a couple great ones that are in there. Like I said, how did you hear about this program? You can continue to add that in there if you would like, only if you promise to listen to what Kelly is talking about next. She talks about the different types of evaluations we've got out there. So let me get this presentation back up and I will let Kelly do some of the talking now, okay?
Till that comes back up. So there are a lot of good ideas there for questions that you might ask for an evaluation. So this first slide that I've got here is about the tools that we use for evaluation. So, you know, we have people here from Game and Parks and from other agencies. And so depending on what types of programs you do, you're going to have specific things you really want to learn about your programs. And so when creating an evaluation tool, that's where I always start, is like, what is the number one, number two, number three thing that I absolutely want to know? And then from there, you can decide how much time will they have to complete the evaluation. And based on that, you decide how many additional questions you might add in. Sometimes our agencies or donors may need you to answer certain questions for them. And so sometimes your evaluation tool can provide you, lots of different types of information. So in this chart here, we have a few different types of evaluation tools. So the first one there is quick hitters, and those are going to be your things. It's not a very formal way to evaluate, but it can give you some good information. So these are things like, for example, one that I always like seeing, my kids went to a summer camp with NRD, and at the end of the session, the camp counselor would always pass around a whiteboard and a marker and ask the kids to write down one word about their day. And it was so much fun seeing the different words that the kids had. And you could tell kind of that level of engagement by the types of words they chose. And so as an instructor, if you're seeing words that you really wanted them to learn or know something about popping up, then you know that worked. And so those are kind of informal ways to do it. Another one is like a bullseye kind of method, where you have each level ranked with like your comfort level in completing an activity. And then they kind of put a sticker on at the beginning of the program, middle of the program, and end. So you can see the growth during the program. So those are kind of some examples of quick hitters. Digital surveys, those are going to be kind of anything you do that you send out for people to fill in. Observation is always a really important one. We can actually train ourselves to observe people in better ways. So for example, observation might not come naturally, but if you teach yourself what to look for example, you might be looking for physical signals that show someone's enjoying their time in the program. You might be looking for kind of basic needs being met. If people seem cold or if they seem tired or hungry, that's a sign to you that something needs to change about that program to meet their basic needs before coming in. Physical collection, that's going to be any way you physically collect the information. So you might be passing out a paper pencil with the survey on it and collecting those. Maybe you're mailing a survey, even like email and things like that can be a format of that. One thing that we've tried this year, and we originally started with paper pencil, but we figured out that it would be a lot of fun to try a QR code. So we have little laminated cards, and at the end of a program, an instructor can just hold up that card and people scan it with their phones, and they can stand there right then and do the survey. Or it's already scanned and up on their phone, and when they get home, they can fill that in. So that's a really great way to do it. Cuts back on paper waste, and you get a lot of good participation that way. We've used it a few times, and we do have really good results getting that feedback from people. The other bonus of that, it goes automatically to a spreadsheet, so you have all the information, you don't have to enter it. So those are some different types of evaluation tools. And then I know Amanda touched on some of these things a bit already, but pre-evaluation, you're looking to gain some specific information about who is going to participate. So that could be demographic. It could be what their current knowledge or skill level is. I know that, you know, let's say we're going to do a nature hike, it might be helpful for us to know if we're getting a bunch of people who go hiking 5 miles every weekend, or if we're getting people who've really not been on a trail much. So some of that kind of current knowledge or skill level will help direct what kind of program you want to do if you can gather that. The needs of the participants. We always ask when we do school programs out here, if there's any special needs. It's helpful for us to know if there's going to be some kind of special need we need to accommodate for in advance. Barriers to learning or participation kind of goes with that special need. And sometimes that can be attitudes that are barriers as well. And interest level, that one's really, you know, that one's kind of difficult to control sometimes, but your interest level kind of dictates where you go with a program. So for example, if you have a program and all of the people in that program are super interested in the content and they signed up for it and they're, you know, going the extra mile to get there because they love that content, you might have different results than if you're doing a program that people are required to attend. So we've all been in kind of both of those situations. So people's interest level can be really important in how you shape your program and help it to meet their needs. All right, and then the next slide we've got is post questions. From our survey at the beginning, we did find out that this is the most commonly used form. So right after programs or within days of a program, it may be emailing something out to participants following the activity. It could be, like we said, the QR code or something that you pass out at the program. But these in a post evaluation, you can reflect on, did you reach the right audience? Did they obtain the knowledge you want them to know? Do they intend to change their behavior? Also, like housekeeping items. Amanda mentioned earlier, like in a Dutch oven program, you might, maybe housekeeping was something that would come up, like, oh, let's move those tables over closer or something like that. Restrooms, those are always things people, you know, people need restrooms, they need access to water. Some of those kind of housekeeping items might be things that you could adjust for another program if you are aware of it. And then would they recommend it to a friend? So that one, we hear that one a lot, that's a good indicator of if somebody really enjoyed your program. All right, and then the next one is long-term follow-up. So long-term follow-up is probably the most difficult to implement, but also kind of measures that depth of appreciation for the program. So for example, if you're asking someone 6 to 18 months after a program how much they enjoyed it, or if it's changed their behavior, they're going to be able to give you actual answer. So for example, if I went to archery on fire over at Platte River State Park and I learned how to shoot a bow, and I absolutely loved it, I might leave the program thinking, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to buy a bow. I've got to try this. I'm going to come back here. Well, life gets busy, and 6 months later, did I actually do that? Or 12 months later, did I actually do that? So, like that level of impact is higher if I did actually go out and buy that bow and come back to Platte River and do this program again on another weekend. So that shows really that level of impact. And so the longer the follow-up, kind of the more you can judge some of those critical things. Did they use the skill? Did they take the next step? Were their needs met? One example of this that I like, I think Julia's on this call. I was just watching one of the She Goes Outdoors podcasts. And what's really cool about those programs is you're learning a skill, and then they've got boxes that they mail out with supplies. And so sometimes supplies can be a barrier to doing an activity. And in those, they actually mail you the supplies to do that activity. So to me, that's like a perfect opportunity to say, hey, did we use those supplies? Did we actually go backpacking? Or did we plant these milkweeds? Or did we, do whatever was in that kit? So I absolutely love that. I think that's one of those programs that you can kind of see that long-term impact in. So, and I see Julie commenting there. So yes, thank you for making those available. They're really cool. So, all right, so that's long-term follow-up. And then I did mention quick hitters before. This is one of them that people sometimes like to use. I think I gave a quick example there. Oh, and Julia just chimed in. They are doing long-term follow-up evaluations. So that's awesome. Yeah, so this one is like a bullseye. So on the middle circle, it would say you have a working knowledge or skill or participation level. The middle one would be some knowledge or skills. And then on the end, little to no skills or experience. So if you were to put up a big bullseye like this on the wall before a program and give everybody a sticker and put their name on it and put it where you feel where you're at. Let's say I put it in the blue because I've never done this program before. And then after participating in the program, I'm going to move it to the red. Maybe I want to come back another time, and at that time I might move it to a yellow. So you can kind of track if your participants are moving towards the center, which means they're kind of, targeting in on that skill. And some other kinds that we use are group response methods. All right, so these are different ways to gather physical responses when you're watching a group, and these can be kind of informal again, but to make them more formal, you can actually kind of take notes about the responses. So for example, you might say thumbs up or thumbs down. In a Zoom meeting, you can do that with the little hand raise thing. A show of hands, stand up, sit down. If there's 2 presenters, or if you have time, you can jot down that, 8 people stood up, 7 people stayed seated. Movement responses, that an example of that is like, if you have never been birding before, stand on this side of the room. If you've gone out to observe birds before and feel like you're pretty comfortable with it, stand on this side of the room. And so then you might get, an idea of which participants are where. So that could be used as a pre-evaluation or at the end too. Sliding scale, select numbers 1 through 6. We recommend even numbers, so people have to make that decision instead of just, going right up the middle. You can do sad and happy faces for kids if they're, if you're doing a program for preschoolers, the fewer words on the page, the better. The visual things like happy faces and things are what they can competently fill in on their own. And then, the older people are, you might do numbers. Sometimes people like to put little descriptions. I like this one, like kind of love, meh, hate. You can add a little humor into those sometimes. And then 4 corners and center, that's like if you have, let's say we had this scale of 1 through 5 and you need 5 responses. So you might do like this corner, that corner. And so just think of different ways that you can use those types of things. These group response methods, another benefit about it is if you need a break in a program, it's a good way to get people up and moving.
So I want to ask the group if they could do a response. I want to know how many of you, now knowing that you can do a pre-date evaluation with your little reactions, either down at the bottom, give me a reaction if you would do a pre-date evaluation. So down at the bottom, there's a little happy face with a plus sign. So I would totally do a pre-date eval. Bob Hanover has a really cool one over there. Looks like some ice cream. And so looks like a lot of people, yeah, I would totally do a pre-date evaluation. That I wish my husband would have done a pre-date evaluation, because maybe that would have spared me going to Amigos and Larry the Cable Guy movie. I feel like we could have elevated it. I feel like there was the potential there to elevate, but it must have worked, because I mean, we're married, so that works. But okay, thank you for filling that out. We'll go back to the screen share. I just wanted to see your pre-date evaluation. So as we're wrapping up for the day, we don't want to just collect information to collect information, right? Like this little cartoon, just get all the information you can, and we'll think of a use for it later. The idea is for you to use the information to improve your program. So you have to go in with that mindset. What information do I want to collect, and how am I going to use it going forward with my programming? Okay, so don't just to collect the information to collect the information. A lot of places will do program evaluations for like 1 year, and then they might wait and do evaluations future years. So they might take a few years off. So some places do program evaluations after every program. So that's something that you and your organization would have to figure it out. So I wanted to know, what questions do you have? So feel free to unmute or type in the chat questions that you have. Lori said she did a pre-date evaluation with her husband. So Lori, you were ahead of the times already on your pre-date evaluation, right? But feel free to type in the chat. What questions do you have about evaluations? Is there something that maybe you're wanting to know more information about, or you had questions and you're like, man, I didn't understand the difference between, goal and objective or something like that. So feel free to either unmute yourself or type those questions in the chat.
Amanda, as we wait to see if there's any questions, I know I have one for Amanda and Kelly. When doing programs with little ones, I feel like you have to be a bit more creative with education evaluation programs. And so I didn't know if either of you had any good suggestions before. I know I've seen other presenters speak to even getting creative and having them, for example, if you're teaching about a particular habitat and then actually using them like drawing, like, can you draw a habitat, and actually using drawings and incorporating that kind of creativity, and then you kind of assessing that. So I know you can get creative with it, but do you have any suggestions for particularly evaluating young ones, little ones, students?
I always like, and kind of the example you gave is actually an observation technique. When you're observing them, you can see so much kind of in their expressions and their behaviors and things like that. But also making things very hands-on or visual makes a big difference. So it might be even something physical. Maybe you have 2 jars with little tokens of some kind, and like, put your token in this jar if you think that you want to go explore your backyard to find bugs today. Put your token in this jar if you're not that into bugs, even after we taught about how awesome bugs are. So like little things like that, where they can physically do something, or like you said, drawing a picture. Those are always great ideas. And like, the happy face things and stuff, they can kind of indicate where they're at on the spectrum for certain questions. But those are all things I think of. And Amanda, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I like also asking those questions at the end, open-ended questions. You know what I mean? Seeing what their thought process is. is always interesting to me. So that would be a hard you get the idea, hard to
Got
write
it.
it down, right?
Mhm.
But at least you're knowing, like, yes, they understand the concept and they're able to explain it to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Or like if, even watching their body language when they're doing the program. And that's another hard one, that observation side, to do it. But are they engaged? Are they having fun? Are they learning? Are they asking questions? Again, that's hard to get quantitative data, but at least you're understanding that you're moving them along that spectrum from just an interest to, or awareness to an interest to maybe they want to go hiking on their own. So that would be one thing that I like to do, especially with the littles that maybe we have a hard time writing and reading and things like that.
Yeah, I think those are great examples. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
No, that's fine. I was going to say, I don't see a lot of questions coming in, but I did kind of want to wrap up with a thought that, some people do kind of stress about evaluations. I personally absolutely love evaluating. And part of it is just, I think that it's a great way to learn. If you're like a supervisor and you've got a team of people leading programs, it's a great way to learn about their strengths. Kind of an example this summer, there were, we had a team of naturalists and, some of them you think are kind of quiet, but then on these evaluations, you find out they really have an amazing connection with people. One of our naturalists was called the nicest man in the world in one of his. So you get to read these joyful kind of things. And we did, about every 2 weeks, we would look through some of those and share the comments. And a lot of meaning came from that. So like, you can always say thank you to your employees. But when you're very specific about how you thank them, thank you so much for going the extra mile. Our customers are really noticing that and they've pointed it out in their evaluations, or little things like that. I feel like it really helps you understand and know your strengths, but also then when you're making decisions about what programs to come, people really just let you know where there's room for growth and where there's room for change. And it is really a growth mindset kind of thing. That if you have that mindset about evaluations, they can just really be a lot of fun and really rewarding for your team.
Yeah, that's great, Kelly. Thank you. We do have a question from Dakota. He asks, are there evaluation techniques that you prefer for outdoor programs and activities? And maybe a lot of the stuff you mentioned today can be used, but is there anything in particular that you want to point out for that question?
It kind of depends, sorry to jump in, but it kind of depends on like what works best for you and your organization when it comes to those different evaluations. Are you wanting something in hand that's very quantitative? Are you wanting that formal evaluation where they either have to fill it out with a pen and paper or do the QR code? Or are you wanting like that behavior type change, long-term program follow-up? I know when we do outdoor activities here, it's the asking a question after they're done or the students understanding it, sending the evaluation to their teacher for them to evaluate the classroom after they've gone to the program, because sometimes teachers have a little bit more insight to that. But I know some other people in the organization do different follow-up emails. So after they get the registration information, people go to the program, they'll follow up with a formal email evaluation. So that wasn't a real direct answer to your question. It kind of just depends on what your organization wants to do and then what your preference is as well. If you're not like into doing a formal evaluation and you'd rather do questions, I think it kind of depends on, like I said, what type of information are you wanting to get out of these evaluations? And I don't know, Kelly, do you have anything you would want to add to that?
I agree with what you're saying there. For us, the outdoor piece, like I said, those QR codes were really easy because when you're in the outdoors at something, most people are still going to have their phone with them. And so they can scan that and take care of it. And you're not carrying stuff around with you and you're out in the environment doing your thing and you can still get the quantitative data. So that's been helpful to us not to have a physical thing with us all the time. But yeah, kind of seconding what you said.
Good. Thank you so much, both of you. I think one thing that I took from your presentation that I really liked is I feel like often when we hear of an evaluation, our mind these days goes to a Google form or a survey. But I feel like you both presented some fantastic opportunities to not just at the end of a program, but even during pre or during program, and just, the most effective and qualitative education programs we can do is we're constantly checking in with our audience and seeing if they're engaged and into what we're trying to get across. And I think that's fantastic. So evaluations can be holistic and multifaceted, and it can just be engaging with our audience throughout the program too. I really like those messages. Any other last questions from anybody today? Awesome. I think we have lots to think about. I will be sending out an evaluation for this first Lunch and Learn series. I'll also be including any resources that Amanda and Kelly might have to help your learning. Amanda, go ahead.
Wait, I forgot.
What? Go for it.
Here, do your post-program evaluation.
Thank you.
Thanks
Yes.
for the reminder. Yeah, so take a few minutes to do that. And while folks are filling that out, I also wanted to mention that within Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, there is this, I don't want to say push, but we're really wanting to evaluate our programming that we're offering. So in 2022, we would really like to evaluate the programs that we're putting together as an agency, whether that be pre-evaluations, post-evaluations, whatever. We just want to make sure that we're meeting our program objectives and how they meet our mission statement for Game and Parks. So I just want to file that in the back of your brain. If you're a Nebraska Game and Parks employee, this might be something that you will be doing in the short time here in 2022. So I'll give about 5 more seconds, sorry, for that evaluation. And we'll share results. It's looking like most of you would recommend this to a friend. Some folks are going to reach out additional information about evaluations, and hey, they thought we were knowledgeable. So good job. There you go. So that is our brief program evaluation. And you can see it doesn't take a lot. It's just a few simple questions to make sure, okay, were the presenters prepared? Did you get all the information you needed? And then, like I said, would you present it to a friend? So thanks for having us as a part of this Lunch and Learn series, Amber. And we're really excited to learn more about next month's topic for sure. It looks fun and interesting.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, Kelly and Amanda, and have a good day. See y'all later.